cloth. Then I'm going to turn the lathe speed down. We don't want it massively fast here. We're about 700 RPM. And then we're just going to use heat with quite a bit of pressure. And we're going to melt the wax and just work it into the piece. And already you can see the finish is coming up quite nicely. Um, and we're starting to get a nice even coat on there as well. So just working our way backwards and forwards. And like I say, the heat from the pressure that I'm applying here is helping melt the wax and give us that even coat. And you can see that is a nice finish we've got on there at the moment. It's going to be nice and protective and it's relatively shiny. Now, a lot of people, they'd finish there, they'd take that off the lathe and that'd be them done. But if we wait a second, we're going to wait for the solvent in the wax to evaporate, to come out of the wax. The wax will harden, and then we're going to go back and buff it up. Now, it's important we use the same piece of cloth for this. I'm using safety cloth again for the same reasons before, but we want to use not only the same piece of cloth, but the same part of the cloth. And the reason we want to do that is because the wax, there's wax on the wood, there's wax on the cloth, and both surfaces of wax will have dried in a moment. And what we're doing as we go back, the lathe is spinning with one side of the wax, and then we've got the cloth in the other hand. Both of the surfaces rub against each other, and they almost polish each other up to a really, really high finish, and you will get a really nice shine from it. But it's really important we don't put too much pressure on because it'll melt the wax and it'll go dull again. So hopefully we've left it for enough time. So we'll turn the speed up for this, not massively high. We're at about 1600 RPM. And then we're just going to go with some light pressure. And I don't know whether you can see, that's already coming up really nice. Yeah, I can see it a lot better in person, but it's going to give us a really, really nice high shine on there. And there we go. That's all it needs. It doesn't need much, but once that wax is hardened and we just do a light, a light buffing on there, then we get that really, really nice finish. Now, it's the same thing with waxes like the microcrystalline wax. With the microcrystalline wax, you do need to wait a little bit longer. So the microcrystalline wax is a harder wax than the Wood Wax 22. If you've ever used a Canubra wax stick, one of the ones that you hold against the wood, the microcrystalline wax in the tin like this is actually harder. Have we got one on the wall? Yeah, here we are. So this microcrystalline wax, which is in a tin, is actually harder once the solvent has evaporated than the Canubra wax stick, which a lot of people find hard to believe because the Canubra wax is so hard and this is so soft. Um, so, and the reason it goes soft, the reason we can get it to go soft is because we put a strong solvent in there, and that softens a really, really hard microcrystalline wax down to a usable paste. But what that means is because it's got that stronger solvent in it, after we put the wax on the surface before the buffing process, we need to wait for that solvent to evaporate, and it only takes a minute or two with the Wood Wax 22. But with the microcrystalline wax, because of that stronger solvent, we need to wait a lot longer. So you probably want to wait at least 15 or 20 minutes before you start to buff if you use the microcrystalline wax. And the microcrystalline wax will give you a more durable finish than the Wood Wax 22. And this is also food safe as well once it's fully cured. Um, so that's the first project. Hopefully you've all learned something. And if you take nothing else from today, it's let the wax set before you buff it, and that will give you a really, really nice finish. Um, so I think we'll do this next. I will show you some of the lacquers, and then hopefully these will be a little bit drier later on, so I can show you some of the other techniques as well. So we do a couple of tinted lacquers. So we do the ebonizing lacquer, which a lot of you will be familiar with. And more recently, we brought out the ivory lacquer. Now, I'm particularly excited about the ivory lacquer because it's the first product while I've been working here at Chestnut that I've developed pretty much, on my own. There wasn't a lot of input from Terry, although he did help a few times when on certain things. But yeah, the ivory lacquer is the first product that I've developed while I've been here at Chestnut, which is very exciting. So hopefully people buy it. So I think I'm going to have to show you the ivory lacquer just because it's a new one. You've probably all seen the ebonizing lacquer before, but um, what we're going to do is we will pop this piece of wood in the lathe. Now this is a nice piece of ash. And I'm choosing ash because it's got quite an open grain. And after we've used the ivory lacquer, I'm going to use some of the rainbow wax. Probably not the white because that's not going to show up very well, but the aqua blue we can probably use, although I've got some other colors there so I can decide in a moment. But we're going to use the ivory lacquer and then the rainbow wax. Now, if I show you this tree here, this is a Christmas tree, obviously not very seasonal, wrong time of year, but the technique I've got on here is where the rainbow wax I've opened the grain with a liming brush and the rainbow wax is sitting in the open grain. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this technique in a little bit. This is done with the spirit stain, but for now I'm going to show you how to do it with the lacquer. So the process that I'm about to show you is the same between the ivory and the ebonizing lacquer. So we've got the piece on here. This has been sanded to 240 grit again, just enough so that we get all of the visible sanding marks out. I don't want to be able to see anything by eye. And this is a spindle blank as well, and as I've been sanding it, the sanding rings will go around the blank. Just as a last pass with the final grit, I just want to go along the grain, and that will not get rid of any of the small scratches, but it will make them invisible because they'll be the same direction as the grain. You won't be able to tell they're there. So it's always important to sand with the grain, especially on spindle blanks, to hide any of those really, really fine scratches. So I mentioned this was a piece of ash. The reason we use ash is because it's a very open grain timber, as most of you will know, and it means that when we put the rainbow wax in here, it will sit in the grain. So I've got the liming brush here. I'm just going to work along the piece with the grain, and what this is going to do is it's going to clear out all of the soft bits of the wood. Now, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on camera, but I can see in person just how much of a difference this is making. If you just sand it, you end up with a relatively flat surface, nice and smooth. This is keeping the surface smooth, but it's creating those valleys in the timber that the rainbow wax is going to sit in a little bit later. And the reason we use a liming brush here rather than something like a wire wheel or something like that is because the liming brush has got bronze bristles, and these are a lot less aggressive than something like a wire wheel, and it means that you don't scratch the timber. If you use a wire wheel, what will happen is it will actually scratch the wood, the bit that you don't want to be removed, and leave you with big gouges, which are pretty much impossible to get rid of without taking the whole thing back and sanding it. And just it's a bit of a pain. It's not what you want. So the liming brush is really good for that. Do a little bit on the end while we're here as well, just to clear out all of that grain. So get these bits out of the way. So want to make sure the ivory lacquer's nice and shaken. And this is it's a tinted lacquer, so it's not a paint. It's what it actually is, a very similar formulation to the acrylic gloss lacquer, which is a very popular product anyway, except it's got a color in it to tint the lacquer. Now, the reason this is good over something like a paint is because if you put a paint on there, it's just going to be too thick. and it's going to fill all of the holes in the wood, all the pores where you want the rainbow wax to go. And it's just going to sort of wipe out, and by the end of it, it'll look like plastic. So there's no real point to doing anything out of wood if you're doing that because you'll just hide all the grain. Whereas the nice thing with the tinted lacquers is that because they're a very, very thin coat, it conforms to the surface of the wood and you keep those valleys in the timber even after you've got complete coverage with the lacquer, basically. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on as we go to a slightly different technique by using the spirit stain and either a sealer or a lacquer to achieve the same effect, but with different colors other than the white and black that you'd get with the ebonizing or ivory lacquer. So um, what I'm going to do with this, I've got a piece of card here to protect my chuck. I'm just going to go a couple of light sprays. I'm just going to work my way around. And it's important you don't put too thick of a coat on here. If you start building up a really thick coat, it tends to start to run. And as well, a thicker coat's going to take longer to dry, which is obviously not ideal for a live demo. So nice thin coat. Well, I just landed on it. Nice thin coat. We can always go around and give this a little bit more if we think it needs it in a minute. And you can see, even with a very thin coat, how effective that ivory lacquer is. Just like the ebonizing lacquer, we can see how effective that is in completely covering the whole surface and not letting uh, any of the color underneath show through. It's a very solid color, and we'll just do a little bit on the end as well. Now, what you might find happen, because we've opened the grain here, um, we might need to spray in different angles, slightly different angles, just to get all the way into the grain. So if you imagine this is sort of the high spot in the grain, if we're spraying at an angle over here, it's going to block the paint or the lacquer from getting on this side here. So we need to spray this way to get coverage and then back the other way just to get it in the bits that we've missed. So just going to go around again at a different angle. And that should get all the bits that we've missed. So it's not a lot. And on something like this, it isn't really essential because all of the bits that we will have missed are going to be covered by the rainbow wax. So if we have got any bits in here, bits in there that we've missed for this technique, you'll get away with it. But if not, then you do want to make sure you go on a couple of different angles with it. So we'll give that a moment to dry. And because this is a lacquer, it's going to give us a very, very hard surface. And that's going to mean we can use the burnishing cream on it. Now, I won't do it straight away. I will give it a couple of minutes to harden. But the burnishing cream, it's a very, very fine abrasive paste suspended in a liquid. And what happens is as you use it on the cloth, it will the very, very fine abrasive in here will work away at the surface and it will polish it to a really, really high shine. So we will look at that in a minute. But for now, we're going to take this one, which is, again, not very, we're not in the right season, but this is a Christmas tree. But it's a good way of showing the technique. And I'm going to take it to the same stage as this, except I'm going to use a different technique with the spirit stains. And then when this is dry in a few minutes, we'll come back to this and have a look at where we go on the next step. So take this out of the lathe. And I'm just going to pop this over here. And I'll keep it in frame so you know I'm not cheating. So pop this into the chuck. So again, this has been sanded to 240. This is ash, so it's not a very dense exotic hardwood. If you've got something that's harder and oilier on here, you are going to need to sand a little bit finer, up to 600 grit maybe, even higher than that if you think it needs it. Because the very dense oily woods, because they're a lot harder, they're going to show up any sanding marks a lot more. So Probably go with the blue. Um, I've obviously had a bit of a disaster with this one at some point because the whole bottle's blue. But if uh, if you ever use the spirit stains, you know it's always the bright colors that you don't want to spill that end up going flying. Yeah, the blue is, but Terry's saying the blue is possessed. So, um, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same technique with the rainbow wax as we are with the ivory lacquer in a moment. But what happens with the rainbow wax is it can soak into the wood. So if I just put rainbow wax on here, what's going to happen is it's going to fill the grain, which is what we want, but it's also going to soak into the high spots of the wood, which is fine, but it's going to discolor the high spots as well. So we're not really going to get a very distinct color. There's not going to be a big difference in color. So we can put the color on, but then again, the spirit stains are designed to soak into the wood. So then you can use pretty much any finish on top of them. Um, but the rainbow wax is just going to cover over it and it's going to hide any color on there. So what we need to do is we need to put some spirit stain on first to get the color. Then what we're going to do is we're going to seal the color in. So we're going to stop the spirit stain from lifting or anything like that. And also we're going to stop the rainbow wax from absorbing into the wood. And we're going to do that by using either a coat of the acrylic gloss lacquer, or for the purpose of the demo today, I'm going to use the cellulose sanding sealer aerosol just so it dries a little bit quicker. But these will do the same job in this scenario, which is prevent the rainbow wax from penetrating through it and soaking into the wood. And that will mean that we can place the rainbow wax on top and then remove it from all the high spots, and it won't have soaked in because it will have been sat on top of the lacquer or the sealer. So, um, a question I was asked while I was doing this at the Harrogate show last year was, why do I use an aerosol sealer rather than a sealer out of a bottle? So obviously the can sanding sealer is the same as the aerosol sanding sealer. It's exactly the same product. Obviously, the difference is that this is aerosolized. And the reason I use the aerosol for this is because it's a thin, even coat. If I go with the bottle version and I've got quite a lot on the cloth, what's going to happen is that the sealer will fill the grain and it will fill everywhere that we want the rainbow wax to go in. So the sanding sealer will give you a really thin, even coat that will conform to the dips in the wood. And it will give us the finish that we want to be able to put the rainbow wax on top. So we'll start with the spirit stain. You always want to make sure you wear gloves for this because it will soak through the cloth very quickly and make a mess of your hands. So pop a glove on here. And we'll take a bit of the stain, being very careful not to knock the bottle over for the second time in this case. We're just going to work our way around the piece. And you can see that it takes very, very little to get a very solid color on there. Now, because we're using this on ash, which is a light wood, we get a very, very, very nice sort of teal color, which I really like. If you use this on something lighter, like beech or sycamore maybe, you are going to get more of a brighter blue. If you use it on a darker timber, maybe oak, it will be a slightly not as bright blue, it'll be a more subdued blue. What I should have done actually before I did that is I should have opened the grain, but that's with the liming brush, but that's okay because I can do it now. And then we can always pop a little bit more stain over the top if we need to. So pop that to the side. You can do this technique without the liming brush, but the liming brush really opens up the grain, so it is important not to skip it. And you can see here how good the liming brush is compared to a traditional brush, is that I'm doing this over the spirit stain. It's not lifting it, it's not scratching it, and it's not causing us any problems. And what you might not be able to see on camera, but I can see here the liming brush is, as it's removing the the lower points in the grain, it's actually clearing out where the spirit stain is. So it's leaving sort of those natural colors again through from the original timber, but those will be covered up with the rainbow wax, so we don't need to worry too much about it on this one. Go all the way around going with the grain. And we do want to go with the grain on this. If we go across the grain, the bristles don't have time to sort of dip into the gaps and clear out the grain properly. There we go. Don't need to go over this with another coat of the spirit stain. We've already got good coverage on there still. So now we'll go over with some sealer. Now, as I mentioned before, this is going to seal the stain in. It's also going to stop the rainbow wax from soaking in as well. This will take us to the same stage, or the same point in the process as we've got here with the ivory lacquer, and that's where we've got a lacquer as the top coat and a colour either of the lacquer or underneath. So ready for the next step. Now, obviously, if you just want the colour, a solid colour, you don't have to do anything else from here. You could do what we did previously with the sanding sealer and the wax, and that will give you a really nice single colour project. So, but for this one, we're going to try and get this this nice effect here. So we'll go with some of the sealer. So same as before, a couple of light coats. And you saw how quickly the sanding sealer dried when I did it on the piece earlier. So you know how quickly this will dry as well. And this is a very, very, very thin coat, so it will really dry very quickly. And it is important to put a thin coat on here. If you sort of load it up and put a really thick, heavy coat on, it might risk dripping or running, which is not ideal. But the main thing is it will fill all of those voids that we're trying to keep for the rainbow wax to sit in. So we'll give that a moment there. Now, you could use the acrylic gloss lacquer, and that would be instead of the sanding sealer for that step, and that would be more similar to using something like the ivory lacquer. But these will do the same job for this project. We'll put a little bit more on just so we make sure we've got full coverage on there. Because if we don't, what will happen is the rainbow wax will be able to find its way through the sanding sealer if we've got a little gap, and it will soak into the wood and colour the wood, and it will sort of make a bit of a mess of it, really. I did try to do this without a sealer once because I'd forgotten my sealer, and it didn't really work. It just sort of made a murky mess between the rainbow wax the and the spirit stain that was underneath, which either of the products on their own, either just the spirit stain or just the rainbow wax, look really nice. But normally when you're doing this, you want a contrasting colors, which when mixed together, they sort of go a bit muddy and they don't look very good. So there we go. So now these are both at the same stage. Obviously, completely different colors. And we can start to do the next technique on them. So, the next stage of the technique. So I've got the ivory rainbow wax, which I'm going to use on the blue one, and I've got the aqua blue rainbow wax, which I'm going to use on the white one. And these will give us a nice difference in color, which actually they're almost opposite. So we might have a matching set here. So that one isn't quite dry yet, but the ivory lacquer is completely dry. You know, that's been there for what, 5 minutes or so, and it's already completely dry. So, well, I say completely dry, it's completely touch dry. You know, you probably want to leave this 24 hours to get the hardest possible coat. So before we do the rainbow wax, I'm going to use some of the burnishing cream just to show you the burnishing cream in action. So we'll give it a shake and we'll get a little bit on some more safety cloth. So you don't need a lot of this, just a very small amount. Little bit goes a long way, and you can always add more if you think it needs it. So we'll start with the lathe turned on. We're at about 700, 800 RPM to begin with. And we're just going to put light pressure across the piece just to get it started. And I'm not moving my hand too much here. I'm just sort of doing small movements. I'm not holding it in the same place because that has the potential to sand sort of lines or rings in it. So same sort of thing with sandpaper. You don't want to hold it in the same position. We're just moving it a little bit up and down, and you should be able to see already that's coming up very, very nice. It might be difficult to see on the camera because of how bright it is, but hopefully you are seeing that it is coming up nicely. Now, once we've sort of got it started, and I will do a little bit on the end as well, actually. Once we've got it started, we can turn the speed up, and that's going to really help us get a really nice glossy finish on there. So we're up to about 1600 RPM. Speed again isn't massively important. You want it going a bit faster. We're just going to work our way around the piece and buff it up to a really, really high, well, burnish it up rather, to a really, really high shine. There we go. Now, again, you don't really need to use the burnishing cream for this technique that we're going to do, but this will just mean when we do put the rainbow wax over the top, it will give us a nicer shine to it. So ready to move on to the next step now, which is the rainbow wax. Glove back on again, because the rainbow wax, it doesn't stain massively, but it will stay on your hands if you get it on your fingers. So a little bit of the rainbow wax. Now, over time, this can sort of start to set up as the solvent evaporates. So you can pop a little bit of the reducer in it, which is this stuff here, and this will soften it. So where are we? Down here. Um, so this will, it's just a clear liquid. It's not going to change the color or anything, but it's just going to soften up the rainbow wax. So I'm going to start on the piece of wood here. You can see that. Going to start on the piece of wood here, and what we're trying to do is trying to work it into the grain. So we're going up and down the piece, and we're trying to get it to sit in the grain. There's no point it just being sat on top like it is here. I don't know whether you can see that on the top camera, where we can sort of see the white from the ivory lacquer through in the grain, because that's where we want it. All this sort of top surface is going to be taken off in a little bit. So we want to make sure we force it all the way into the grain, and we're looking for quite a solid color here. Doesn't need to be perfect because we are going to be removing the excess, but we do want, full coverage across the piece, making sure we've got it all into the wood. So just working my way backs and forwards. When you get these, they're really, really, when you first open them, they're really, really soft and they spread really easily. But if they do go a little bit, harder over time, this one's probably, would you say, a couple of years old, Terry? Yeah. So yeah, and even now it's still workable. It's not. I don't think any of them have ever dried into such a hard lump that they're not workable. But we just want to make sure we get that all in the grain there. There are plenty of colours in the rainbow wax. I've got a few of them here. Obviously the ivory and the blue. But we've got sort of pinks. There's more metallic colours like the bronze and the silver and copper and stuff like that. A lot of you might remember the gilt creams, which have been discontinued now. and they're being replaced with a gold rainbow wax because it's a very, very similar product in use, except the rainbow wax is easier to use and it's slightly cheaper and there's more colors. So we're pretty happy to, not happy, but we were comfortable with dropping the gilt cream because the rainbow wax is as good, if not a better product. Or at least that's our thinking anyway. So almost there now. A little bit more on that end, just to fill the grain. Now you're probably thinking that doesn't look that great, which it doesn't. It's a little bit of a mess at the moment, but that's okay because hopefully we're going to get it all cleared up and it should look a lot better. So the next bit, we want to sort of take our time with. So I'm going to get a bit of the reducer, which is the same thing that we use to soften the wax. And I'm going to pop a little bit on the cloth. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lathe on and I'm going to use the reducer with the lathe running with light pressure, and it's going to take off all of the rainbow wax which is sat on the surface of the piece. Now, this works really, really well for spindle blanks because as we remove the excess rainbow wax, it doesn't the cloth doesn't drop into the grain. It can be a little bit trickier to do on a bowl because half the time you're removing the rainbow wax with the grain, so it's easier to pull it out of the grain, but it's still possible on a bowl. It's just easier with a spindle blank. So and turn the speed down a little bit. We're about 800 RPM again here, and just light pressure. I'm just going to start to soften up that top surface of wax. Now, you're not going to see a huge difference immediately. You see a little bit of a difference, but you can see that cloth already there is, it's that bit there is full of the rainbow wax. Now, if we keep going with that, it's almost going to just smudge and it's not really going to remove anymore. So we'll just flip it to a new side. We can put a drop more reducer on there. And this is just going to take even more off. Now, it's important you don't go too much because if you take too much off, it's going to pull it all out of the grain, which is where you want it to stay. So just want to take your time bit by bit. And if you do take it too far and you do end up pulling some of the color out of the grain, it's not the end of the world because you've still got that lacquered surface underneath. So all you need to do is put more rainbow wax on it and then try again. So not a huge disaster if that happens. Flip it over. We see there we're starting to get that pattern through. A little bit more needs to come off. And I'm going to go with a little bit less reducer as well, just so the rainbow wax doesn't turn quite so liquidy. So there's probably quite a lot on there already, actually. So there we go. And a little bit off the end there as well. So hopefully we should start to see that effect come in. Now, Terry was at a demo recently and someone asked him why the ivory lacquer had turned blue as well. And it hasn't, it has turned blue a little bit. Obviously, it's not as strong as where it is in the grain. But the whatever color you put on top will slightly color the underneath surface. You can see here actually on these two pieces. This is the same. This is the same base color, except this one is a lot lighter because it's got the rainbow wax over the top, so it has colored it a little bit. But that's okay because it's still a really nice effect. So see if we can take a little bit more off. Put a little bit more of the reducer on, and we can see as it's spinning, the piece getting lighter, and we can see where we're removing material, so we can removing the rainbow wax, so we can keep it nice and even. And there we go. So we've got really, really nice contrasting colors there, where the rainbow wax is sat in the grain and the ivory lacquer is showing through underneath. Hopefully that shows up as well on camera as it does in person. So that is if we're using something like the ivory lacquer or the ebonizing lacquer. Obviously the ebonizing lacquer will be the same, but black instead of white. And something that we found with the ebonizing lacquer is that the color doesn't isn't as easily noticeable when it sits on top. So obviously the white is very easily colored by the rainbow wax. The ebonizing lacquer, because it's black, it hides the color a lot more easily. So we'll take this off, and hopefully you won't be able to see it there with the focus, but there we go. So we'll pop this one back in. Terry's run off to get something, so I'll tell you what he's come back with in a minute. So we've got a very similar thing on here now. We've got the color underneath and the sealer on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with the he's gone to get his glasses so he can see what's going on. So we'll go with a little bit of the ivory rainbow wax. I'm going to pop my glove back on for this just so I don't make a mess. I'm not going to bother using the burnishing cream on this, just so you can see the difference, because we're going to polish the wax up on this as well. You would be able to polish the wax, the rainbow wax on this piece as well if you wanted, and it would bring the shine even higher. So get a little bit of the rainbow wax on there, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing as before. We're going to work it into the grain. And now this should be a little bit easier to do because it's a bit smaller, but hopefully you can see already where it's all sort of sitting in the grain, and we're getting that nice color come through, that color contrast. Oops, I put my finger there. So working all the way around, making sure we've got it in all of the grain. Not too worried if we put too much on. Obviously, you don't want to waste it if you can help it. But it's more important we get a nice even coat on there that's in the grain, so we don't have to put more on afterwards. So I've put quite a lot on here, so we can just wipe off some of that excess. There we go. And then we'll take some of the safety cloth. And some more of the reducer, and we'll turn the lathe back on. We're going to go at a low speed again, and we're just going to remove some of that excess. Now let's see where we are with it. There we go. And take a touch more off that, not a lot. Perfect. Now, obviously this piece looks a lot lighter than this one, and that's simply because this is quite a close grained piece of ash. Now, this is an open grain piece of ash, not open grain, sorry. No, this one's close grained. I think it is open grain, isn't it? Anyway, the grain is widely spaced. It's grown quick. This tree's grown quickly. Not the Christmas tree, the actual tree has grown quickly, leaving you with big gaps between where the softer parts of the grain are, and that is going to show more of the base color rather than this one, which has got a tighter grain, and you've got more of the rainbow wax showing. What I would do now on this piece is I would take my skew chisel and I'd do a cut into the base here just to get a really nice sharp crisp edge on that color like I've got on this one. We do top down camera there. Can you see that? yeah, I've got a really nice sharp edge here where the color goes from the color to the wood because I've gone in there with a skew chisel and cut that off. Okay, so we'll take this out and we'll pop those up there so you can have a look at them as we continue. We'll look at a different technique. So, oh, any questions? Any questions? Is I'm being reminded to ask. Have we got any questions?
Okay. Daniel, thank you. Going back a way,
Yeah.
you were showing us NIWeb. Can you explain to us the different grades of the different colours, and you know what would be appropriate for what process?
Yes, so that's a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, the orange Nye Web is equivalent to about 1,000 grit. We do have the three other colors, which are the green, red, was the orange, and then you've got the white. The first three are abrasive, so the green, red, and the orange are I've got an abrasive in them. The green is equivalent to about 400 grit. The red is about equivalent to 600, and then the orange is about 1,000. The white Nye Web is non-abrasive, so it's not got a grit in it like the other three. Although because of just the material it's made of, it is very slightly abrasive, even though it doesn't have a grit in it. And that can be used in certain situations to apply. You can use it to apply the rainbow wax. People use it to apply the wood waxes. Um, and it just means it can be easier sometimes to get a better finish rather than uh, you know just a normal cloth. Whereas so the other three with certain types of finishes. So if you've got an oil finish, I'd normally use the hard wax oil, which is one of my favorite oil finishes. Um, you would want to sand that back between coats. Now, if you use a normal sandpaper, it's going to clog the oil is going to clog the sandpaper up quite quickly, and it's going to it's not really going to work very well. Whereas this, because it's a mesh, it doesn't clog up in the same way, or at all really. And you can start off with the green Nye Web, red Nye Web, and then the orange Nye Web, and it will remove any of the high spots, give you a really smooth surface for the next coat of oil to go onto. It also denibs stuff like the sanding sealer. You could use all three grades for that as well if you wanted. Normally, you can get away with just the orange, but it's basically it's just sandpaper really, but it's more versatile because you can use it without it clogging up when sanding away the different finishes. I think I've got that right, Terry.
Yes, flexibility.
And the flexibility as well. Yeah, so it's very flexible. You can push it into wherever you need it to go. You're not worried about sandpaper, which can be difficult to get in small, tight spaces sometimes. Any more questions?
Doing too well.
Yes, it's fine if there's no more questions because it means I'm doing a good job of explaining everything, I hope. Um, okay. So, we'll do a little bit of I'll just talk a little bit before we go to the break. So talk a couple of different finishes I can talk about. So we've got a lacquer finish, which comes in a tin or an aerosol. We've got a wax finish, which normally comes in a tin or a stick, and then we've got an oil finish as well. So something like the hard wax oil, which I'll let you in on a bit of a secret. This is empty because it's a dummy prop for the back shelf. But this is the hard wax oil that I was just talking about, but this is an oil-based finish. Now, um, there's different reasons why you would use one over the other. Different types of oils, different types of lacquers, and different types of waxes. And you can use combinations, so you can put one on and then another one. Now, we've also got stains as well, but they're slightly different. So we'll talk about those in a minute. Now, when we're looking to put a finish on a piece of wood, if we want to use an oil finish, the oil needs to be the first thing that goes on the wood. You can't put anything else underneath it. You can put spirit stain underneath it, because the spirit stain soaks in then completely evaporates. So it almost just changes the color of the wood. It doesn't leave a coating on top of it. So the spirit stain really is the only thing that you can put underneath the oil. Now, the reason that is because the oil relies on soaking into the wood to give it the protection. So you put the oil on, it soaks into the wood and gives you a nice coat. Now, imagine you had a wax on the wood and then you go to put an oil on top of it. The wax is going to repel the oil and it's just going to make a little bit of a mess. Now, so the oils always go on first. Now, the lacquers create a very hard finish, so it's a very durable finish. Um, they're normally very resistant to heat. They're resistant to denting, and the acrylic gloss lacquer in particular, which is the one in the aerosol, this one and the satin version of it, which is the green one. These are both the same product, except that this one's satin, this one's gloss. Now, these are especially durable because they come in an aerosol, they've got UV filters in them. So if it's a project that's going in a window, maybe in direct sunlight, if it's something that's going outside, this is a great choice because it won't dull or the finish won't get damaged over time as it's in the sun. Um, so lacquers, they're a very durable finish, but they need to go on, quite a hard base coat. As I was mentioning before, if we put two coats of the sanding sealer on, what's going to happen is it's going to give us a squishy surface, and then when we put the lacquer on, it can risk cracking. Likewise, we wouldn't want to put a lacquer over the wax because the wax is a soft surface and the lacquer will crack. It could risk coming off. Um, so you normally only want to put a lacquer on over a sealer in most situations. There are some situations where um, you can get away with putting a lacquer over something else. So, for example, the rainbow wax. Normally, you wouldn't want to put a lacquer over a wax, but because the rainbow wax is such a thin coating, you can put the acrylic gloss lacquer over the rainbow wax. But in most situations, you wouldn't want to do that. Um, then the wax can pretty much go over anything. The wax can go over the oil if you want it to. It can go over the lacquers. It can go over anything. And that's because it's a flexible finish. It doesn't crack in the same way that some of the other finishes do. It doesn't rely on soaking into the wood. The wax will pretty much go over everything. It's a very, very versatile finish. Um, Now, there are certain reasons why you want to use one finish over a different one. We've got food safe finishes. So the food safe finishes we do that have a certificate are the food safe finish. Who could have guessed that one? And the microcrystalline wax. So this is a food safe finish as well. So once it's fully cured, that will give you once the solvent is fully evaporated, that will give you a food safe, make your project food safe. Food safe coating, yeah, that's it. Um, I'm getting good at this now, aren't I? Um, so those are the food safe finishes. The UV resistant finishes, that's another one we get quite a lot if something's going outside or in direct sunlight. Obviously, the acrylic gloss lacquer has got UV resistance, as I just mentioned. The other product we do, which I might have behind me. No, oh, I do. Yeah, over here. This is the other product that is UV resistant, and it's the finishing oil. And this has got the UV filters in it to protect from sunlight. So if it's like a garden bench or something, you could do it with the acrylic gloss lacquer, but it would take a long time and be quite expensive. So the finishing oil would definitely be your best bet for that. If you're doing a bird feeder, I had someone ask about a bird feeder. Acrylic gloss lacquer is perfect for that because it will be a smaller project and it's going to contain those UV filters which will stop the sunlight. Um, so we've also got stuff like the friction polish. So this is a shellac-based product. This it does very little in terms of coating. It basically just gives you a very, very thin coat that will go up to a very high shine. So this is really good for going over either directly over a sealer, or you can put this over a lacquer, and it will give you a really, really nice shine on it. But you wouldn't want to put this over something like a wax because this is a harder coating and it's not gonna do well if it goes over something like a wax, not least because the friction that you need to make the friction polish work is going to melt the wax and it's just going to all mix in together and it's going to be a disaster. So don't do that. But friction polish will go over a sealer and a melamine lacquer. And I don't have one to hand, but we do have a compatibility chart, which is very, very helpful in seeing. Oh, Terry's running to get one. We do have a compatibility chart, which is very, very useful in seeing which finishes go over which other finishes, and it doesn't tell you why. So hopefully I've just explained a little bit as to why you can't put certain finishes over other finishes. But the compatibility chart is a good way of seeing that. Oh, here we go. Oh, he's not going to come onto camera. Oh, he is. There we go. So that's the compatibility chart. So you can see you've got first coat here and second coat here. You can say, right, well, I've put, I don't know, oops. Um, I've put burnishing cream on something, on a previous coat. I can't put a lot of things on that, but I can put the waxes on top of it and stuff like that. So it's a good way of seeing what we can put over what. It's also very handily on the back of the price list. So if you'd like a price list, then it's on the back of that as well. And it's on the front page of the website to download. Brilliant. I'm seeing that as about 8:30 if we're ready to have a break. If not, I can keep
That is good
talking.
timing. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Is that chart you just waved around available on the website?
Yeah, so you can buy it on the website. If we'll get it shipped to you. Or if you just want to download it or view it, then it's on there as well on the main page.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. See you in about 20?
Yeah,
20
Yeah,
minutes.
about 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
can we sharpen the picture up? To do with the
We're just trying to get everybody seated. No picture. You could have a camera draw.
I need a bit more safety cloth. No.
Okay, can we start, please?
Ready to go? Do we have a what time are we going to finish the demo before I just start going and just keep going? If you've got a preferred finish time or no, that's all right. I can I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Oh,
Can I have one question? Can you answer one question before you start?
absolutely.
Apart from putting central heating into my workshop, how do I keep hard wax oil in a usable condition through the winter?
Say that one again, sorry.
I said the hard wax oil under cold conditions solidifies. How
Yeah.
do we stop it doing so, other than central heating?
So yeah, so it's not really the cold conditions that make it go thick. What can happen is over time, especially as you get sort of lower through the bottle of hard wax oil, what happens is the solvent from the hard wax oil starts to evaporate into the top section of the bottle. So even if you're keeping the cap screwed on, it will slowly tend to go hard over time. Now, Terry's on his way back with, oh, here we go. Perfect. Terry's brought some props back for me to demonstrate what's going on. So, oh, it's on the wrong camera. Oh, okay. Okay, so we have got, oh, this has been sat on its side, but that's okay. So we've got this product called Air Purge Spray, which is it just for the hard wax oil really it works with, or?
Mainly the hard wax oil, yeah.
It works with most oils, all oils actually, except the food safe. You probably wouldn't want to put it in the food safe finish. What the air purge spray does is you spray it into the top of the bottle when you finish using it and leave it sort of 30 seconds. And what happens is this fills the space, and it means that when you put the lid on, there's nowhere for the solvent in the oil to evaporate to. And what happens is it stays liquid basically. So these are both had, if we go to a zoom close-up camera, these have both had the same products in them. These both got hard wax oil in them. This one has had the air purge spray in it. This one hasn't. So these were done at the same time. As you can see, this one is pretty liquid. And this one, if I flip it the other way, is very not liquid. And that's because as the solvent has evaporated into the bottle, it's come out of the liquid, making it go all hard. So it's not actually the heat. Oh, go on.
And also, so the oils don't take it off, spoil it. The oils oxidize, so they're reacting with the extract in the jar or in the can,
Okay.
and that also makes them go off quick. So makes it solidify.
So I don't know whether you heard that, but Terry's just told me that the reason, another reason that the oils start to solidify is because they start oxidizing, and that starts to make them sort of set and go hard as well. So the air purge spray will stop that. Obviously, taking it inside won't do it any harm. It will really, the only thing that will, some of these finishes, you don't really want to let them freeze, especially the water-based ones like the acrylic finishes, because if they freeze, then they stop working very well and they can separate. But yeah, the reason that the hard wax oil will be going thick isn't because of the temperature, it's because of the solvent evaporating and the oil oxidizing. So the air purge spray will stop that if that's something that you're running into quite a lot. If it has gone thick already, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, but there's probably not a lot you can do about it, unfortunately.
Depends how far it's gone.
Depends how far it's gone, I'm being told.
Thank
Terry's
you.
trying to
Oh,
figure
there we go. That's how I turn this mic on. So I think you can use white spirit to thin the oils down, but it depends how far they've gone as to whether or not they're actually going to come back to a more usable consistency. Once they start oxidizing, they're effectively setting, and so the white spirit can't penetrate into it and reactivate it.
There we go. Thank you for that, Terry. Hopefully that answers the question. So
Question.
yeah, another question. Yeah, absolutely.
At the Harrogate show last year, I bought a selection of those rainbow waxes.
Yeah.
They kept in a unheated garage over the winter. I opened one a couple of days ago, and two of them have got like a mold growth.
Yeah, so it's something we have had a couple of times before. So if the rainbow waxes are kept in, they can be kept in quite hot. If they're kept in hot environments, then what can happen is sometimes they can start to grow a little bit of mold. They're very, very similar to petri dishes. So the second you get any bit of bacteria in there, they can start to sort of grow, and you can end up with a little bit of mold in there occasionally. So one way to prevent that from happening in the first place is if you wear gloves when you're taking it out of the tin, or if you always make sure you're using a cloth, that will help prevent it. Even if you do that, it's still potential for it to start growing a little bit of mold, just from ambient bacteria just landing in the pot while it's open. If that does happen, it's not a big deal. You can just scrape off the molds or any sort of bacteria that started, and the wax underneath will be perfectly fine and perfectly safe to use. But it did happen to a couple of my demo ones where they were sat in the warehouse in the sun all summer, and they started growing a little bit on one of the corners. But it's not really that big of an issue. You know, you can remedy it quite quickly. So
Thank you.
that's all right. So, going to do a different finish on this one. So, we're going to do the sanding sealer again. Always a really good base, unless you're using an oil, in which case you don't use a sealer. Then we're going to go with the melamine lacquer. Now, the melamine lacquer is a really, really good durable finish, as I mentioned previously. The melamine lacquer is cellulose based, so and cellulose is a strong solvent, so that means that this can be a very, very hard wearing finish, which is going to be very, very durable as well. Now, we'll start by popping the sanding sealer on. So again, same as before, we want to put it on with the lathe stationary. I've got another piece of ash here. I'm We're just trying to finish this one. We're not trying to do any rainbow wax or anything, so we won't use the liming brush on it. So we'll work our way around. I want to make sure we've got complete coverage here. Probably not so much in this situation because the melamine lacquer is quite similar to the sanding sealer in a lot of ways. But if you leave or if you miss a little bit with the sanding sealer, what can happen is when you put your second coat on, then it will soak in differently to the exposed bit of wood and it can go a different color, so it might start looking a little bit patchy. So it's really important you get full coverage with the sealer. So pop that all the way around there. So we'll give that a couple of seconds and that should already be dry. It's almost there. But it's a very, very quick drying product. We'll use the orange Nyweb again. So it doesn't need to be a massively high speed. And we'll just go around with the Nyweb and remove all the high spots. And you can see already, nice bright finish on there. Just from the sealer. So next we're going to go with the melamine lacquer. So this is a very popular finish for pen turners. If you do any pen turning, this is a really, really good finish for that. And that's mainly because it's very, very durable. It's not like a wax where if it's a pen that's being handled, your fingers are going to melt the wax over time. This is a really durable finish and it's going to give you a lot of protection. Now, you probably want 3 coats of the melamine lacquer. And that's going to give you the highest level of protection. It's going to sort of build up and give you a strong coat on there. Now, I know earlier I was saying about building you don't want to build the sanding sealer up too much. And it's the same with the melamine lacquer. You don't want to put loads and loads of coats on for the same reason as you wouldn't want to put 2 coats of the sanding sealer on. But the melamine lacquer is a very, very hard finish. So building up multiple coats isn't going to give you the same soft underneath squishy finish that the sanding sealer is going to give you. So you can get away with a few more coats and it will only add to the durability rather than take away from it. So we've got 1 coat on there and this is very quick drying as well. So we should see in a few moments it will be dry. Normally, like I say, 3 coats. What we do is we put 1 coat on, wait for that to dry. Then we denib that again with the orange Nyweb. Put another coat on, wait for it to dry, denib it with the Nyweb, and then put a final coat on. And that will give you a very, very durable finish. Now, once you've done that, we can use the burnishing cream, and that's going to bring that melamine lacquer to a really, really high shine. So we'll wait a second for that to dry. And then I'm going to denib it with the Nyweb. Now we'll do a little bit more of the melamine lacquer. Just get a slightly thicker coat on there. So just working my way around. There we go. Now, with all of these bottles, it's quite important to wipe the neck of them. So when you put the lid on, it doesn't stick and you'll be able to get it off easily next time. So we used to have all our finishes in this style of bottle, which is a metal cap and has a metal thread on the neck of the bottle. And these were great for a lot of reasons. One of them is that you can get a pair of hose grips on them and pull them off, and pull the lid off. But unfortunately, they stopped making, our manufacturers stopped making these bottles. And so we had to come up with a different solution. And well, was it the bottles? No, it was the caps, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the caps. So certain products need to have child-resistant caps on them because they've got solvents in them and they're hazardous products. So we needed to be able to have child-safe caps on them. Now, we used to use this style cap for the smaller bottles, and this is a child-safe cap. So if you spin it, it won't open, but if you push down on it, it does open. And that is a child-safe cap, but they stopped making that for the 500 milliliter bottles. So we had to change how we were doing it basically. And I think we've had quite a lot of feedback on people saying that they struggle to get these lids off because they're plastic. You can't get a set of hose grips on them. And believe me, this is the best solution to the problem of them not making the older style caps anymore. There's lots of ways to do this, but this one was the best by far. I think you'll agree, Terry.
Highlights the importance of keeping the neck clean.
Yeah, and it as well, it highlights the importance of keeping the neck clean, like Terry says, because it's got a plastic lid, it's got a plastic neck, and if you don't wipe it clean, they basically stick to each other, and it can be quite difficult to get them apart. Especially because if you start trying to get grips on this top cap, it can start to swivel the whole thing inside the tin. So really important to wipe the neck clean on these. So there we go. That's dry on there now. We will denib it again. And now we're going to use the burnishing cream. So we used the burnishing cream before on the ivory lacquer. So I'm going to show you what it will do on something like the melamine lacquer. So pop a little bit on the cloth. A little bit more than that, although you don't need a lot. I'll turn the lathe on. Sort of medium speed to begin with, about 1000 RPM on this one. I'm going to start working our way around nice and slowly. And the very, very fine abrasive in there is working itself into the wood. It's just burnishing that top surface and giving us a really, really nice finish on there. There you go, and hopefully you can see how nice that's coming up on camera. There we go, and we've basically got a mirror finish on there. It's a very, very high shine. You might be able to see it if you've got the camera too. Yeah, really, really nice shine on there. I will take it off just so you can see a little bit better. And that will be a very hard-wearing, durable finish as well because it's done with the melamine lacquer. And you saw it didn't take long to do, a couple of minutes. And we've got that really nice finish on there. So, like I say, great finish for pens. You're going to get a really, really durable finish on there that isn't going to get damaged by people picking it up. You're obviously going to drop pens at some point. The melamine lacquer will stand up to that, as well as lots of other projects. It's really good for smaller stuff. It can be a little bit difficult to apply for bigger things, just partially because of how quickly it dries, but also, you've got to be careful it doesn't go patchy, and because it's just quite hard to get an even coat. So really good for small stuff. Pens especially are brilliant, but a really, really durable finish. So the next finish I'm going to show you, I'm going to do it on the same piece of wood. So it's a good opportunity to show you this, which are the Niweb, not the Niweb, sorry, the Net Abrasive. So you might have seen this or something similar to this before, but what it is, it's basically a mesh abrasive. So I don't know if you can see through it there, but it's really good because as you're sanding, it lets the dust through. It's not like traditional paper-backed abrasive or even cloth-backed abrasive, where as you're sanding, the abrasive will come off, the wood will come off, get stuck in the abrasive, and it will stop sanding. So it lets all the dust through, and it means it lasts a lot longer and cuts a lot quicker as well. So we're just going to sand through this finish. I'll start with an 80 grit just to take off the previous coat. And the melamine lacquer is very durable, but not durable enough for 80 grit sandpaper. Very little is durable enough for 80 grit sandpaper, if I'm being honest. Other than tear out. Tear out can be tear out is seemingly the only thing that survives the low grit sandpaper. So started with the 80 grit, and we'll do the 120, 180, keeping the sandpaper with the abrasive moving the whole time. Don't want to sand rings into the project. And then we'll finish with 240. And there we go. That will have removed any visible marks we've got in here, and we'll leave us with a really nice surface to do the next process on. So really simple one for the next one. We're going to do sanding sealer and friction polish. This is really going to be really good at highlighting the friction polish. A lot of you will know this product. It's again a very popular product. These two are our most popular products. Am I right in saying? It's close. Okay, this is definitely our most popular. This is close second, if not close second. So this will be a really, really good way to show you how to use these if you don't know already. So, I mean, you've seen this enough times by now, but we want to go with the cellulose sanding sealer, and we're going to give that a nice even coat around. Now, while I'm doing this, I can talk a little bit about different sealers. So, cellulose sanding sealer is the most popular. The reason it's the most popular, well, who knows why it's the most popular, but the reason we think it's the most popular is because it's the most versatile. You can pretty much put any finish that's compatible with the sealer on top of the cellulose sanding sealer. And the reason that is because it's got a very strong solvent in it. Nothing that you put on top will be strong enough to dissolve the sealer and lift the sealer off. So it will give you a very, very durable base coat. If you go with something like an acrylic sanding sealer, although those are very good in their own right because they don't give off any chemicals, they don't give off any fumes, and they're they're really safe to use. There's no chemicals involved with them really. Because it's acrylic based, so water based, what happens is if you want to put a finish over the top like the melamine lacquer's got a strong solvent in it to give it the hardness to make it a strong finish. If you put that over a soft or a weak sealer, something like an acrylic sealer, which isn't designed for it, then what can happen is the melamine lacquer will start to dissolve the sealer on the wood, which isn't what you want because it'll just make a bit of a mess, and you won't get the benefit from using the sealer if you do that. So got the sealer on there. I'm going to denib it with the Niweb again. And now I'm going to show off the friction polish. Now, friction polish can go over quite a lot of things. You can do, I could have done friction polish a minute ago. So if I popped the melamine lacquer on, the friction polish can go over the melamine lacquer if you want to get a really bright finish. You can also do burnishing cream over the friction polish, or you can do friction polish over the burnishing cream. So you can do, if you want something really, really, really shiny with a really deep finish, you can do sanding sealer, melamine lacquer, burnishing cream to make the melamine lacquer shiny, then friction polish to give it a brighter shine, and then burnishing cream on the friction polish to make it doubly bright with a really deep shine to it. So that's one way to do it. But for this one, I'm just going to use the friction polish just to show you what it can do. So we'll give it a good shake. This is shellac based, and it does separate out quite quickly. So if you don't shake it, you'll just end up with the solvent in the top that you're trying to put on the project, which isn't going to work. The shellac, which is the bit that stays on the top and gives you the coating, sinks to the bottom, and that's what you're trying to shake in. So we'll give it a good shake. Make sure it's all mixed in. And then we will pop some on the project. So not too much. I've recently been doing some production work, and this is the finish that I use. I do sanding sealer, cellulose sanding sealer, and then friction polish. And that gives me a really, really nice high gloss finish easily, which the customer who I do it for is always very happy with, as long as I do it right. So the way I use a friction polish, Terry might use it differently to me, but I've always found the most success with having the speed of lathe relatively slow, and we want light pressure as we go around. And what's happening here is as the friction polish is still liquid, the solvent's still in there, it's spreading a really, really thin, even coat across the whole piece. And it means that once the solvent has evaporated and it's dried, we can then turn the speed up and use the friction, we can use heat, and that's going to make it go really, really shiny. Now, something that you might have seen before if you try to use a friction polish is a load of rings in the project, and that's probably come from turning the lathe on immediately, having the speed really high, and before the friction polish has had time to set and go hard. It's all over the place and the solvent's evaporating, and that's what's going to leave you with the rings because it's not been worked into the workpiece properly before it started drying. So we'll keep doing this, and we're going to keep doing this until we start to feel the cloth pull a little bit. And what's happening there is the friction polish is hardened on the surface. It's starting to go dry, it's starting to go tacky, and it's trying to pull the cloth in. And what that means is it's almost dry. So once it does start doing that, which I can feel it's starting to pull a little bit now, we can turn the speed up. So not ridiculously high. I'm about 1600 RPM here. And then we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to work our way around. And at this point, we're building up the friction. And that's what's generating the heat, which is giving us that really, really high shine. And it's quite similar to what was happening with the wax before, where we've got the wax or the friction polish in this case on the cloth, and that's rubbing against the friction polish on the project. And the action of those two surfaces rubbing against each other is what's giving us that really, really high shine. If you used a different piece of cloth, one without any friction polish on, then you're not going to get the same high shine as you would. Because it relies on the two surfaces of dry friction polish rubbing against each other to get you that finish. So there we go. And that's just on a sealer as well. There's no fancy finishes or anything on there, just a sealer and friction polish. And we've got that really, really nice bright finish on there. Oops. Yeah, it was a good finish before I dropped it. That's all right. There we go.
Is there a limit in the size of pieces? I've always found that big pieces of friction polish doesn't really work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So what happens with bigger pieces, so something like that obviously is fine. You can get away with something a bit bigger than that. You probably wouldn't want to go above anything that sort of size. And the reason you will have been struggling with doing something bigger is because the friction polish is spirit based, and what happens is the spirit thinners evaporate very quickly within 20-30 seconds. And when that happens, the shellac in there it hardens, it firms up. So if you're doing a bigger piece, the solvent was evaporated before you've had a chance to get that even coat around the whole piece, and that will mean that some of it's got hardened shellac on it, some of it's not, some of it's still wet. It ends up going a bit patchy, and that's where you'll have been struggling. And then when you try and make it go shiny by turning the speed up and using the cloth on it, it'll probably end up a bit patchy, and potentially we'll start trying to pull bits off the cloth in where it's still sticky. and it will just be quite difficult. But small stuff, it's really, really good for. Um, like I said with the melamine lacquer, really good for pens. Friction polishes get as well, really good for pens. You can use the friction polish actually on acrylic pens. It's really popular for because the acrylic pens don't really need a traditional wood finish because they're plastic. So, you don't need any protection on them really because it's plastic. It's already pretty much as durable as you can get. But the friction polish will brighten it up. It will not give it a huge amount of extra protection. Not that it needs it, but it will make it really, really shiny. Um, so you don't have to be there for hours and hours and hours trying to sand it up to thousands of grit. Hopefully that answers your question. But yes, you're right in saying that you can't use it for bigger pieces easily.
You talked about acrylic sanding sealer.
Yeah.
What finish would you put on top of that?
So if you've got an acrylic sanding sealer, quite a few finishes you can put on top of it. You can put the waxes on top of it. You can put an acrylic based top coat on it. So the acrylic lacquer, stuff like that is going to be really good. The Wypon poly as well is acrylic based. So the Wypon poly, which is another way of getting quite a durable high gloss finish, that will go over the acrylic sanding sealer. And personally, I never use the acrylic sanding sealer, and that's because the cellulose sanding sealer will do everything that I want it to, and the smell doesn't bother me really at all. If one of the reasons that the acrylic sanding sealer the acrylic products are so popular is because they're non-toxic at all really, and you can get a really good durable finish. I say that the melamine lacquer is a very durable finish, which it is, but the acrylic lacquers are also very durable as well. But the acrylic lacquers have no strong smell like the melamine lacquer and the cellulose sanding sealer do because they're water-based. So they take longer to dry, but they haven't got that strong smell. Hopefully that answers that one as well. So let's show you a way of getting a bright finish on something bigger than you can use friction polish on. So you've probably seen this somewhere before. Oops. This is our buffing wheel kit. So we've got the mandrel, which I just popped in the chuck there. And then we've got buffing wheels A, B, and C. And we can use these together to get a really, really high gloss finish on a project. Now, if you've ever been to any of the shows, either Harrogate or Newark or The Weekender, which is a very good show, we can talk about that a little bit more in a minute. You'll have probably seen this bowl before. This has been Terry's demo bowl for the best part of what, 7 or 8 years, would you say? 7 or 8 years, we reckon. And this used to be a tenon on the bottom, but it's been buffed so much that it's rounded it off over time. But yeah, this must have been buffed hundreds and hundreds of times. This originally had 3 coats of finishing oil on it. So it's had a coat of finishing oil, sanded back with the Niweb, another coat, sanded back, another coat. And that will give you something that will look sort of like this. It might be a little bit shinier with the finishing oil, but you'll end up with something, not massively shiny. You can build up a higher shine with more coats of finishing oil, but it takes quite a lot of time, whereas this is a lot quicker. So we've got the 3 wheels. They are made of slightly different material. So buffing wheel C is slightly softer. You can see there it's a lighter color than buffing wheels B and A and B. You can see there it is a different material. And that's because it needs to be a lot softer to get that final finish. Then likewise, because that one is softer, these are slightly coarser, because these are designed for material or surface preparation. So we've got the 3 compounds, or the 2 compounds, and the Canubra wax. And compound 1 goes on buffing wheel A, compound 2 goes on buffing wheel B, and the Canubra wax stick goes on buffing wheel C. Now, these two compounds, compound 1 and 2, they have got an abrasive in them. So compound A is a little bit more aggressive of an abrasive, it's slightly coarser. Compound 2 is a finer abrasive, it's slightly less aggressive. But both of those are almost going to act a little bit like sandpaper would, and they're going to prepare the surface finish to a better, smoother finish. So when we go with the final wheel with the Canubra wax, we're going to get a really, really high mirror finish. So we'll pop buffing wheel A on. So a nice thing about the buffing wheel system is it's very, very quick and easy to use. We'll turn the lathe on. And we're just going to apply a little bit of the buffing compound 1 to the wheel. So just hold there for a couple of seconds. It doesn't need a huge amount. It doesn't want tons and tons. If you put too much on, it can start to come off onto the project and leave a little bit of brown on there. So you don't want too much. And what we're going to do, I'll work on just a section of this so you'll be able to see the difference. But we're just going to start working our way around. And we're going to stay in the bottom quarter of this wheel. And that's going to stop it trying to be pulled under or trying to shoot downwards as well. So got a relatively firm grip on it. It's not trying to pull it out of my hands. You know, but I'm not gripping it with a vice-like grip. It's just sort of a gentle grip I've got on there. I'm just going to work my way around. Now, what this is doing is it's very, very finely cutting away at that top surface, and it's starting to buff it and starting to polish it up to that high shine. You can already see, just with a couple of seconds on there, how much shinier that is. And if I spin it around, you can see there, that's what it looked like before. Still got a little bit of a shine to it compared to that. You know, it's a lot nicer of a shine already just from wheel 1. Now, we go to wheel 2, we can spin wheel A off. Wheel B, sorry, and then wheel B will go straight on there like that. And we'll add some compounds. So compound 2, again, doesn't need a huge amount. And we're just going to work our way around with that exactly the same. Now, something about these buffing wheels that's really, really good is as you vary the speed of the lathe, they change how they act. So if I've got the lathe running very, very fast, so at 1400 RPM, I can put quite a lot of pressure on here, and the wheel isn't really deforming. It's staying quite firm. This is really good for something like this platter or this shallow bowl where I've got a flat surface and I want to buff it quickly. If I turn the speed down, so we're about 600 RPM here, maybe a little bit faster, 800 maybe. If I put the same amount of pressure onto the wheel, look at how much it deforms. And this is really, really good for stuff like if you've ever done wood turned fruit, if you've done smaller objects, this will deform around them and it will mean you can do curved surfaces really, really easily. It's not all about flat surfaces or anything like that. It will conform to the surface of the wood. So we'll turn the speed back up for this piece because it was a flat piece or relatively flat. And we'll just work our way around. So there we go. We can see with the wheel B, we've got that shine to the next level. Looking really, really nice. If I catch it in the light. And then we'll do exactly the same thing or very, very similar thing with wheel C. Now, the first two wheels I mentioned, wheel A and B, were slightly abrasive. So they had a cutting compound and the wheels are slightly coarser. Buffing wheel C, really, really soft wheel, and it's got the Canubra wax on it. Now, what's going to happen here is the Canubra wax isn't going to do any cutting. The wheel isn't going to cut away at the bowl anymore. That's finished. What's going to happen is we're going to apply the Canubra wax to the wheel. And then as we buff the bowl, what's happening is the heat that's being generated is melting the Canubra wax on the wheel, which is being transferred onto the bowl and simultaneously being buffed up to a really, really high shine. So we'll apply some of the Canubra wax to it, and this has a lovely smell. So the whole studio here is filled with the lovely Canubra wax smell. And we'll do the same thing as before. So we'll work our way around. And this is going to start to put that final top coat of finish on of the Canuvra wax. And it's going to give it that extra protection as well. And there we go. In just a couple of minutes, couple of seconds, we've got that really, really beautiful finish on there. You can see there the difference between the bit that's been finished, the bit that's been buffed, and the bit that's not been. This has obviously very clearly been the bit that's been on the buffing wheel, and it's a really, really good effect to see in person as well, and you can feel how smooth it is. If you're ever at any of the shows, then we've normally got this with us, so come and say hi, and we can demo it to you in person if you like. But this is a really, really, really nice way of getting a high gloss finish really easily and quickly. And it's great as well because you can just put it straight on your lathe. This is an Axminster chuck, but this the large mandrel fits pretty much any chuck. I know Terry uses a Nova chuck, I think. I'm getting a nod, so I think that's right. Oh, he doesn't know. Okay. Terry uses a Nova chuck for his demos, and it just drops straight in. You just put it in, butt it up to the chuck, so you know it's nice and parallel. Tighten the jaws up, and it's rock solid in place. And you can also get the small mandrel as well, which we sell for it, or if you get the buffing wheel kit, it comes with it. And that's if you've got something that's really awkward. So maybe you've got a big project, maybe something that you can't take to the lathe very easily. The small mandrel will let you put the buffing wheels in your drill. So you can take the buffing wheel to the project rather than the project to the buffing wheel. And the other nice thing about them is as well, they use your lathe, which is you've already got, or you should have if you're a wood turner, rather than a separate buffing machine, which can be quite expensive.
The one thing you haven't mentioned, Nathan, is the need for eye protection using the buffing wheel.
Yes, so these are impact resistant glasses, but normally, yes, you want to make sure you use eye protection. Yeah, that's thank you for mentioning that. It's and that's because if anything comes off the wheels, that there shouldn't really be anything, but when these wheels are new, sometimes you get some of the fibers coming off, and they can, you just don't want to you want to make sure they don't go in your eyes, especially if you don't wear glasses, then you do want to make sure you wear eye protection.
Tell me, if you need to clean the wheels down, I mean, my buffing wheel A gets quite clagged sometimes because I put too much wax on it. Is there a way of cleaning them apart from just abrading them on a piece of wood?
Yeah, so we have, I mean, if it does get sort of clogged up, it's not the end of the world. It's not really going to stop it working as it should, or it shouldn't do. If you put lots and lots of compound on there, then it will potentially start to cause some issues as it will leave brown from the compound on the bowl or the project. Is there any reason, Terry, why you couldn't just use a piece of wood and it would help clean it off?
I would, so cleaning it, I mean, you can actually use soapy water. You can wash it. Very messy, and you want to make sure that you stand well away from it when you turn it on again, because you could end up with a shower. But people do it, and it works. Two other options would be to put a piece of abrasive, something like an 80 grit, onto a piece of wood and effectively wear away the top sort of millimeter of it to expose fresh abrasive underneath it. We also do a two-handled mop dresser. It's like a wire brush that you can hold against it, and that is incredibly effective at cleaning them up. You need to be very careful when you use it because it will remove some of the fabric as well, in the same way as the abrasive would, but it does it very, very quickly and very cleanly. And because of the structure of it, it helps to separate the different layers of the wheel. So that's another good way of doing it. So yeah, it's all possible. Frankly, the cheapest way is probably a bit of abrasive on a bit of wood. The bit of wood is because it's going to get very hot. But the ultimate way of doing it is the mop dresser, but that's the more expensive option, obviously.
Yeah, I was quite impressed by the mop dresser when I first. I've only used it once, but I was quite impressed because you barely touch it to the wheel and it just cleans it all off instantly. It's good. But yeah, like Terry says, there are other ways to do it without spending money. Yeah, so that's the buffing wheel kit. We also do the buffing tree, which I don't have in here at the moment, but it's basically the 3 wheels. Rather than the 8-inch wheels, they're 6-inch wheels. And they're all together on the same mandrel, which you hold in place with your tailstock as well. And that's really good, especially for smaller items, because you don't have to have the buffing wheels on and off the lathe. You can have all 3 on the lathe at once and just buff the first piece, buff it on the second wheel, and then finish it off on the third wheel. And you don't have to worry about taking the wheels on and off. And that's great. Doesn't work for the bigger pieces because as you're trying to buff it on one wheel, you'll be trying, it'll be hitting the other wheels. So bigger projects, you want the buffing wheel kit. Smaller projects, the buffing tree is a really, really good option as well. We also do the dome buffs, which are same principle, except they're that shaped and they go on the mandrel, and they're really, really good for doing the inside of bowls, because obviously you might struggle to get the inside of a bowl like that with a traditional buffing wheel. So have we got any questions? No? So pop this back on and I will sand off this friction polish. Same process as before, starting with the 80 grit just to get it cleared off. Then we'll go with some of the higher grits. Now, something that's really nice about the net abrasive is any sawdust, any dust that does get stuck in it, we can just flick it and it will dislodge it all. It will all come out of the gaps where it's been sitting and give you basically a fresh new piece of abrasive. So 180, starts with the 80, then the 120, 180, and then the 240. We do the net abrasive up to 500 grit. You can get it in a mixed pack as well, which goes up to 400. Obviously you go higher if it was an oily wood, but for this piece of ash, you don't need to go higher than 240. That will get rid of all of the visible marks on there. So, surprise, surprise, we're going with the cellulose sanding sealer again. And then we're going to look at the cut and polish. Now, cut and polish is a really, really good product. I have run out of safety cloth. If somebody could grab me some more. Thank you. So pop the sanding sealer on. Now the cut and polish is an abrasive paste. You've probably seen something similar, maybe under a different name. I know there's quite a popular one that's going around, or that there was going around a few years ago. But this is our version of it. And it's basically an abrasive paste. So it's a wax and it's got a grit suspended in it, like a paste. What am I trying to say here? It's got a grit suspended in it, basically. We just need a camera here. You should see what's happening off screen. Yeah, so the cut and polish is an abrasive wax, which has got a grit suspended in it. And as we're using it on the project, the grit in the paste sort of wears itself down, it wears away. At the same time, it sort of scratches away at the surface, and it makes it go really smooth, basically, because it's similar to the buffing, similar to the burnishing cream, except a lot more coarse. The burnishing cream is a very, very fine abrasive. This is a lot more coarse. And if you get a little bit of this between your fingers, you can feel the abrasive in there, which will be doing its job when we use it on the project. So we will get a little bit of the Nywev again. and the inhibit, and then we'll go with the cut and polish. So you see here it's a it's like a grey sort of paste, and I can feel there, 4 minutes. What's in 4 minutes? Oh, okay, we're finishing 4 minutes apparently. So I better be quick. We've got the cut and polish there. It has got the abrasive in it. We'll pop a little bit on the cloth and then start to work this into the workpiece. So pop a little bit on there. Again, we're putting it in with the lathe stops just because we don't want it to go flying when we turn the lathe on. And then we'll turn the lathe on. Start off at a slow speed, not massively fast, maybe 600 RPM. And it's important as well, we're using the same cloth throughout the whole process. So light pressure, a light to medium pressure actually. You don't want to go too light because you're not going to wear away that grit in the paste. Medium pressure, and what's happening is that the grit in there is wearing itself down, and this will sand the equivalent of about 240 grit down to about 1,000 grit, or similar if you use traditional sandpaper. And this is going to give you a really nice shine, and is really, really quick and easy to do as well. So working our way around, and then once we've sort of got it started, got it worked in, we can turn the speed up. Now we'll do a last bit of polishing there, and then we can leave that for a moment, and that solvent's going to evaporate, same as it did in the Woodwax 22. And then we can then go back over that and polish it up a little bit. Now, one of my favorite finishes, if I'm doing a project at home, it takes a little bit longer because it's got the microcrystalline wax with it, which takes a bit longer to dry. So I can't really use it for my demos very easily, but I do the cellulose sanding sealer, the cut and polish, and then the microcrystalline wax, and that leaves me with a really, really smooth, really bright finish that's pretty easy to do. And it's a wax finish as well, so it's going to be quite forgiving and look nice as well. And it can be easily repaired if if somebody picks it up and it's maybe they've got really warm hands, or it's a hot day and the wax is slightly soft, or maybe someone drips water on it. It's going to be really, really easy to repair. You can put a bit more wax on it, or you can just sort of rub it in by hand off the lathe, and it's going to remelt the wax and cover over that spot. So I'll give it a second now, and hopefully with light pressure we should see that start to come up a little bit. There we go. So that is the cut and polish. Really, really nice and easy to use, and gets a great result. So time for questions. If anyone's got any questions. It can be about finishing. I'm also a wood turner, so I can answer wood turning questions if you'd like me to. No, okay. So, oh yeah, do we have a question? No, okay, that's fine.
I'm about to stand up. We have problems with mobility.
Yeah, oh no, that's all right. So, a couple of things that I will mention, if that's okay, before I let you go. So most of you will have probably heard of the Wood Turning Weekender, or I hope you'll have heard of it. So this is, obviously it's run by Chestnut Products, but we try not to make it a Chestnut Products weekend. We've got other trade stands there. It's wood turning orientated. It's not finishing orientated. Because I think if it was a whole show that was fully finishing orientated, you'd all be fast asleep after the first day. But it's a great event. We've got lots going on. It's down in Swindon this year, so I know it's a bit of a trek for you guys because you're all the way up in Yorkshire. But if you can make it, it'd be great to have you. And it's a great Oh, and it's live streamed as well. So if you can't make it, then you can join the live stream and watch it all live. We spend quite a lot of money on that, so it's you know, it's quite well done, if I don't say so myself. Otherwise, if
It's a whole lot more professional than this live stream. It's been because I'm not driving the cameras.
if you can't make it to the Weekender or are not interested, which is fine, you know, not everyone has to be. You can keep up to date with what's going on by subscribing to the weekly newsletter that we do. Sometimes it's written by Terry, sometimes it's written by me, but obviously we know whose are the more interesting ones. I'm getting a look, I better be quiet. But yeah, if you that goes out every Friday morning. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to that as well. And you know, you'll be kept in the loop on what's going on here at Chestnut. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for sticking with me.
Nathan, I'm amazed every meeting I come to, I learn something. And I'll clearly say, I didn't know about the spray in the cans. Something completely new to me. Thank you. And I'm an old dog, I know most of the tricks, but it's nice to say that you always learn something at these meetings. I would also say that you've got some lovely products there. And yes, if you're not careful, you try every one of them and you don't settle on one. So can I just ask the audience to give you a nice round of applause and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure to demo for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gents, just before you leave, can I remind you, we need some volunteers for Jeff. Also, have a safe journey home. And can I thank the ladies who, in the background, attend to the tea for us. It's very much appreciated. Have a safe journey home.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I shall switch off now, if that's all right. I think Steve will be in touch.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a nice night.